The Menendez brothers and their verdict. Imagine the youngest member of your family, someone you love deeply, enduring years of silent suffering and relentless abuse. Then, one day, they snap, driven by fear and desperation. This tragic reality parallels the lives of the Menendez brothers, a story of trauma and reaction that unfortunately could be closer to home than many of us think. After Netflix released Monster and a documentary about the Menendez brothers, this case drew my interest. I had already studied it for an 4-hour informative speech where I discussed their trial and how their popularity in the media affected public opinion. With this base knowledge, I've also decided to dive deeper into understanding the complexities of their story for this persuasive speech. The Menendez trial unveils deep issues within our justice system. It shows how media influence, untreated mental health struggles, and childhood trauma can skew trial outcomes. This case isn't just history, it's a call to reform a justice system that often overlooks these factors. The Menendez brothers deserved a lesser sentence than life without parole, and this case underlines the need for our justice system to account for the complexities of trauma and mental health. I'll explore how media influences, neglected mental health defenses, and the effects of childhood trauma contributed to an unjust sentencing in the Menendez case. Our justice system must recognize the impact of trauma on mental health in sentencing and limit media influence in high-profile cases. To give context, I'll start with an overview of the Menendez case and its original verdict. According to biography.com, after years of alleged abuse, the Menendez brothers' decision to kill their parents was to many incomprehensible, but to them, it was a reaction to relentless trauma. Media, however, painted them as ruthless killers. In my eyes, the brothers experienced years of sexual and just straight up awful abuse from both of their parents, the main perpetrator being their father, and their reasoning to kill their parents wasn't just out of hatred, it was also out of fear because they thought that their parents were going to kill them. When media dominates public perception, it can lead to a biased jury and unjust sentences. The Menendez trial's extensive coverage influenced public opinion before it even reached the courtroom. The brothers were such a high topic issue in the 90s when their trial was being held that people didn't really understand, people couldn't understand that men were being abused, so it was almost split by the sexes, where it was like women felt for them and felt bad and they totally understood, whereas men were like, no, there's no way that a guy can experience trauma. And so the role of media bias in the Menendez trial demonstrates why this policy change is essential. High-profile cases are often swayed by media narratives, as I have said, which shapes jury opinions even before the trial begins. In cases like this, the media often simplifies issues, overlooking complexities like mental health and trauma. According to the Menendez brothers, how media sensationalism swayed public opinion, the brothers just had no chance before they even got into the courtroom. Like I said, the media often oversimplifies these issues, so when the jury had to look at their case and understand the complexities of the trauma that they had endured, they couldn't really do it in an unbiased way because they had already experienced so much bias from outsiders. So, limiting media coverage in such cases could ensure that the verdict reflects the evidence, not the pressure of public opinion. But media bias is just one of several issues in the Menendez case. Another significant factor is the overlooked role of mental health. The Menendez brothers were denied a full defense based on their mental health and abuse history, which could have changed how the jury viewed their responsibility. The Manhattan Institute states, mental health courts created to serve individuals with mental illnesses improve public safety by providing treatment rather than punishment. So while integrating mental health considerations in sentencing, it could lead to a fairer and more rehabilitative outcomes for defendants, as well as societal outcomes. The brothers actually, while being in prison now, have grown and created a lot of resources for people experiencing abuse, especially men. And there's a special episode on Oprah about guys that had experienced mental health. So even though their verdict was awful, not awful. Their verdict is super unjust. They still made the best out of it. And recognizing how trauma influences mental health can change the entire judicial process, which leads to my third point. Severe trauma can lead individuals to act in ways that, while criminal, are rooted in psychological harm. Recognizing these effects could lead to more rehabilitative sentences. According to Yao, the relationship between childhood trauma and crime, studies confirm a link between childhood trauma and criminal behavior later in life. So the brothers experiencing trauma from ages 6 to almost 20, over a decade of abuse, kind of explains why they did what they did to their parents. Not that it's right, but they should have had a lesser sentence because they did it out of fear and out of hatred and all the things. But considering trauma in sentencing could prevent overly harsh punishments and instead lead to options that focus on treatment, not just incarceration. And these factors underscore changes that we need in our justice system. We need policies that factor trauma into sentencing and place limits on media and high-profile cases. Again, the Manhattan Institute states, mental health courts, part of broader criminal justice reform, provide a nuanced view of offenders, leading to fairer and more effective sentencing. Adopting trauma-informed guidelines in our justice system could lead to more equitable treatment for those affected by trauma and mental health issues. And this shift could bring compassion and equity to a justice system often viewed as rigid and punitive. Today, we examined how media bias and undervalued mental health defense and the impact of childhood trauma shaped the Menendez brothers' case, and how these issues reflect broader problems within our legal system. The Menendez brothers deserved a lesser sentence than life without parole, and we need a justice system that acknowledges the complexities of trauma and mental health. I challenge you to take a stand in the next week. Consider reaching out to policymakers, signing a petition, or just raising awareness on social media. Small steps can create a big change. If we leave these issues unaddressed, more individuals like the Menendez brothers will face sentences that ignore the trauma they endured. Justice should reflect empathy and an understanding of human complexity, especially in cases of severe abuse. By championing this change, we advocate for a system that recognizes and protects individuals, making justice a true reflection of humanity. Thank you.